wasn't planned. Like it's such a long process. And okay, so it's juggling many things, right? There's a murder mystery, there's this spiritual thing, and there's the political element. You know, which of his incriminating photographs caused his death. So I was juggling all these things, and the book went through many drafts, and a lot of the time it was a mess. I mean, this is the problem with writing, as we all know. You know, it's a complete mess until the 19th month where it all falls into place.
Right.
So I did chats with the dead. I thought, I entered in the Gratian Prize and got shortlisted, and I chatted with the judges and chatted with readers, and I knew there was things to fix, but I gave it to my agent. I was exhausted, and I said, and it had been a long time since Chinaman, and when I wrote Chinaman, no one knew I was writing, so it was fine. Now, since Chinaman, I was like, okay, so when's your next book coming out? Is it coming out next week? And no, you just have to ask that question, saying, it's not done yet, maybe next year. And do that every year. And so I gave it to my agent, and India immediately pounced at it. So India was very enthused, and I guess India, the idea of yakas and pretas and all that, and even IPKF, they understand this.
Right.
So we found a publisher, Penguin Random House published it. Came out in January of 2022, just before the pandemic, and we did a launch, and then we all went indoors after the all through.
Yes. I met you there.
He made me a critique of Chats with the Dead, right at the bar.
Yeah,
we sat there.
Yeah.
You remember?
Yeah.
It was a very erudite conversation for like 8 at night on a Saturday after food, but
Completely.
I remember that. But what I found is it's struggling to find a publisher outside. So now Chinaman, look, this is nothing new. Sri Lankan, this whole question you're asking.
Yeah.
It's been a struggle, for Sri Lankan writers. It's a tiny country. Okay, we grabbed the world's headlines last month, but still, is the Midwestern of America, the library is going to stock a book on the Sri Lankan conflict in 1989, or a book about a left-arm spin.
Yeah.
So Chinaman opened a few doors. I didn't expect it. I mean, I expected Chinaman would transport, maybe export to India, Pakistan, subcontinent, but I didn't expect, like, in Seattle, like, people were reading it, asking.
Really?
Yeah, I was in Seattle promoting a middle-aged lady who stood up and said, "Do you think that Murugaran's action is legal?" And I was like, wow, that was the toughest question in Seattle. I didn't think I could answer that. So the book traveled.
Yeah.
But funny enough, Chats with the Dead, a lot of the publishers who were receptive to Chinaman were like, look, we think it's confusing, we're not quite sure what's going on.
Right.
So when I finally did find a UK publisher, Sort of Books, which is an indie publisher, and Natanya Jans, this wonderful editor, she very kindly said, I think it's a wonderful book, but it needs a lot of work. You need to really make it palatable to Western reader who knows nothing. So that was supposed to be a 2 months edit, like just explain who the JVP, who the IPKF were, explain what a yaka is. But of course the pandemic happened. So suddenly it's like, okay, we're not going to publish in June 2021, it might be so then we have another 6 months, let's tinker a bit more.
Right.
And then suddenly 2021 comes along, it's like, it may not be out till 2022. So we ended up, you leave an editor and a writer with a finished thing, and we will keep tinkering. And it was a painful process, but I think it was a very worthwhile process because she really took it. And people in publishing are very polite. They're not going to say,
they murder you nicely.
They're not going to say that it was boring. What were you smoking when you wrote that? They're going to say, I think it's tremendous, but I think we need to pull out that subplot. We need to get rid of that character. We need to rewrite the ending. We need to rewrite the ending.
Pretty much in that book. So is it vastly different? Chats with the Dead and 7 Moons and Maali?
No, it's the same story.
Yeah.
It starts and ends roughly at the same place, and it's the same journey.
Right.
But I think a bit of the gruesome scenes were taken out. So there are some particular gruesome body disposal scenes, which was in Chats with the Dead, which they, perhaps rightly thought this is a bit too much, so that was taken out.
Although pretty much that's exactly how things happen, I think.
It was, but they said, you got to ration out the gruesomeness so you don't put people off by having bodies being fed to animals on page 5. Sorry, spoiler. So that happened, but also it was just, okay, let's explain this spiritual, this rebirth, which we take for granted, karma, which we take for granted. Let's explain those concepts. And so it was 2 years of work. I mean, I'd say it's the same book. But and they both got lovely covers, I have to say.
Yeah.
One's got a colorful one was done by my brother, the illustrations,
Yeah.
with the dead, so I can sell both. They're both my children. But yeah, this has gone through the pandemic and gone through more rigor. And I guess, look, the results, I suppose, her wisdom spoke for itself, because we couldn't find the UK publisher, and then it gets longlisted and shortlisted. So
absolutely. So is there Shehan, did you think that it will get into the Booker shortlist?
Yeah, of course. next year I'm going to get Oscar
and 5 years down the line, the Nobel Prize.
Prize for physics, why not? Why not?
But what I've always found is that, especially the Booker, it kind of like sensationalizes certain parts of the world at certain times. India was tremendously in fashion. Africa was tremendously in fashion. And now Sri Lanka, not the first time. I mean, Ramesh Konasekar, I think, is the first Sri Lankan way. Michael Ondanji. Then somebody else got it.
Yeah. So Ramesh Reef was shortlisted in '92. Then Ondanji won it for the English patient. And Arun Pragasan last year for Passage North. Look, okay, the Booker, it's like winning Oscar. This is, you don't think, and also when you write a book for so long, if you sit there writing, hoping a Booker comes your way, you're going to have a very sad and depressing career as a writer. You write the thing, and then there is that moment where you give it over, where there's no more commas to put in. And I think there's a similar thing in theatre, right, where the director hands over the play to the
after a while it's done, and it takes a life of its own. Yeah.
So there, I had that moment with Chinaman where, you write it and you're like, okay, what if no one in the world wants to pick up this book?
Yeah.
You kind of have to I think it's okay. I think, I did my best. And so I was at that stage with this, I thought, it's as good as it can be and put it out in the world. And then we move on. The late great Carl Muller, that was his. So first thing when I finished Chinaman, I went to Kandy on pilgrimage, went and sat with the great man in his library and asked his advice, and he said, don't change a word, don't listen to editors, don't change a word. First bit of advice, second bit of advice, start the next one tomorrow. And I didn't take either bits of advice. I'm a big tinkerer, and so I tinkered for 2 more years, and I didn't start the next one till. But there is something to be said that you let it go and then you move on to the next one. And what the world thinks of it is none of your business. You have, and it's easier said than done, but you need to get to that stage.
Absolutely. So which actually it brings me to my question, the next question actually. So there must have been you may have intended this to be read a certain way or to be interpreted a certain way. What are the craziest interpretations of this book that you've heard from people who've read it? Because they, like a play, a book takes a life of its own. After a while, it's no longer yours. It's the words. Whoever's read it has interpreted. So, have people completely missed the bus, or come up with some completely random interpretation of what was said just now?
Well, so it has traveled in the sense now there's YouTube people who have not, or I guess booktubers they're called, who know nothing about Sri Lanka, know nothing about 89. And I think most of the points landed. One comparison was Beetlejuice and Ghost, Patrick Swayze's Ghost.
Right.
And I was like, I never thought about that. You're right. Those were there in your subconscious. Those were the first. Goldberg. But Beetlejuice, maybe that's where I stole it from, this idea of this bureaucracy afterlife. Not so much with this. With Chinaman, I got a few strange interpretations that the whole final act was a dream. That WG had fallen into Arak stupor and he had imagined the final act. And you read it, it kind of works. So that was an interesting thing that I didn't really anticipate. This one, it's too early. But I am glad that people are responding to the relationships, because that's another thing, Maali Almeida was a closet gay. And in '89, I don't know if there were any other types of gays walking around. It's not like it is today. We don't forget how far we've come.
Right.
And so he had a beard, I guess you call it, a frock, is it? A fake girlfriend. He had a fake girlfriend for appearances, but he also had a secret love affair. And that love triangle is a central part. And he had a troubled relationship with his parents. And those things also play a big part in the story. And a lot of people have responded to that, the relationship between Maali and Didi, his lover. And so that's been something that's quite gratifying because I didn't think anyone noticed that stuff. They just focus on the gruesome stuff. But interpretation-wise, no, I think people just, ghost stories are universal and everyone knows that there are sort of rules there.
Absolutely. And no country in the world is devoid of ghosts or some kind of legend involving ghosts, so obviously it's going to appeal. But yeah, I'm glad that, all the little, bullet points or the subtext has been interpreted that way, the way it should be. Because there's actually a lot of human interaction and all these characters have such, that's why they appeal to me, because the backstory was, it was real. And having lived through it, I mean, both of us, we were 14 years old, when you're recounting these events when we were both 14, right? So, I mean, we all saw it, we all heard about it, we heard the screams, we've seen the burnt tires, we've seen it all, So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was an element that I felt I was sort of insulated from. I mean, I lived in Colombo, all of what you described, yes, but I feel I was insulated now. So my wife was in the plantations in the hill country, and their experience is much, and I've heard the stories, much more harrowing than what I had. And I sort of projected that to Maali. Almeida has this guilt complex that he is a Colombo 7, living in the Colombo bubble, and that it's unfair that people are suffering up north, and that was sort of one of his motivations. Also, another motivation was he could get laid when he goes out to the war zone. But also, so there was that aspect, but also he felt that he needs to go up there and he needs to go see what the people and the country is suffering. And so that idea of that the Colombo bubble and the guilt we have that we experience the war, but people really suffer like the rest of the country did. So I think that was something that I imbued with but also when you live with these characters for long enough, they end up kind of speaking to you.
Sure. They kind of take you actually where they want to go rather than where you want them to go to.
That's been the experience.
What was your reaction when you actually found out that your book was basically shortlisted? Where were you? What were you doing?
So, my wife was in a petrol queue for 4 days, I think
Wow!
I was like, look, the earth is giving up, Mad Max, so let's prepare for the apocalypse. I was like, that's she was like, no, we gotta do this. And so I was walking my kids to their classes. So I was walking my 5-year-old to class when I get this, my publishers and call, and of course, I explained to my 5-year-old, but I think it's really understandable. He was like, nice fun, Dad. But also, like I said, I kind of zenned the whole process. Like, you let the book go, and I did on the next one. That took me a while to. I had no expectations. That I thought, okay, if it gets reviewed in the Guardian, that's a good result. But when this casino, when this Maali Almeida is a gambler. That's another metaphor that he was an atheist. That's why he's flabbergasted to be in Islam. The universe is random. It's all the throw of the dice. And so, for me also, I look at my literary career as that. You could be lucky to be short. So, but I threw 3 sixes because my book is launched on August 4th. On July 9th, we have this event that captures the world's headlines, and suddenly everyone wants writers from Sri Lanka to write about it.
Right.
And then I get the book along with. So it was not the perfect launch.
Right.
So like you say, where you don't want to go to the bathroom because Sri Lanka might lose, maybe Aragale was all designed to get this launch.
Get you to the book along with.
Because suddenly, and now before you really launch a book, you will be lucky if you get a couple of pressing points. Suddenly, people are asking, the Economist is saying, can you write about that? The Spectator is calling me. So it was a wonderful bit of fortune. So, I appreciated that. I was grateful for that. I mean, I didn't leap for joy at the time I was, but it sunk in, and I realized what a great bit of luck it is. And I was happy with the long list. You've got to treat it like a casino. I think they're not going to roll another 6. But, got to the short list.
That's great feeling. I just want to know, so still obviously a formula to consistently getting to the booker is lost on you, obviously. There's no formula.
No, so look, now last year, so now when I was tinkering with this book, feeling a bit sorry for myself,
Yeah.
Natanya, my editor, said, well, actually, it's good that you didn't release it in 2022. This is when Anuk was. So, Anuk's book, I read the first one pretty much. He's a very different writer to me. He's a very serious-minded young man who writes about his deep meditations on the war. I can't crack him dick and fart jokes throughout the thing by also talking about this.
Yeah.
And what Natanya said is, good thing you weren't published this year because the head of the judges doesn't like fantasy and magic realism, likes more realistic things.
Right.
And so it's
all
down to
these
the
things
taste.
matter.
It's down to the taste. So this time I lucked out because you look in the shortlist, Percival Everett's The Trees is also a bit of a surreal, satirical violent. So it looks like the judges this year have a taste. And these are lotteries you can't predict, right?
Yeah,
you don't know the
definitely.
makeup. So I think formula-wise, look, if it helps for us brown people to capitalize on it, I'll take it. But you're right. We do have post-colonial, third world.
There are so many authentic stories that need to be said about Sri Lanka, and I don't think we've addressed even like 5% of what we actually can talk about.
Yes.
Shehan, how has being on the short list for the Booker Prize affected sales?
Well, they don't tell me those things.
Okay.
they these vulgar things.
Surprise! Surprise!
But
Yeah.
I just made it's done.
Yeah.
It's got translation. Chinaman was translated to Sinhala by the great Dilip Desekar, but
Yes.
it didn't do much foreign sales.
Yeah.
Presumably because it was seen as a cricket book about a left-arm spinner playing for Sri Lanka. So, but this one has managed to. I think there's a Russian version coming out. There's a US version coming out. There's a Bulgarian. So it's traveled that way.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's getting reviewed.
Yeah.
It's So
So when you when the publisher kind of takes over the rights of certain things, are you in the know on like how many languages getting translated into, or that's also another surprise, just like the sale figures?
No. This is so. Yeah. This is what I've been doing since the short, is sitting in meetings with agents and publishers.
Right.
People who didn't return my calls for the last 5 years are now calling.
This is always the case.
Saying, can you get me here? What do you think the Greeks want to offer this much? And so there's a lot of activity that. I mean, you probably know I answer my emails and my texts like every Sunday.
That's right.
I got back to you on a Thursday. So but no. Awards are nonsense. Let's accept that it's not like I get to the final like netball or cricket and I get to do a playoff with no do a write-off and then we get to the semi. It's the book is written and it's done and whatever happens. But it is important.
Yeah, how much will it mean to you if you end up winning it?
Those are game changers. I don't want to speculate. Let's not count the dice before it goes. Look, it's a 6-way thing.
No chickens shall be counted
no
before they are
chickens
hatched.
shall be counted. These are game changers. These are. But look, the game has changed enough. You have to learn to be grateful. Being a shortlist has given it the launch that it needed. So I'm happy with that. But you want to.
So the Booker judges basically have described your book as angrily comic. Is that the right summation of your book?
I take that as a comment. But isn't like Sri Lanka angrily comic?
Comically angry.
We will talk about another angrily comic, at that industry. We'll come to that. we'll get to that. But I know you're working on 2 other, books that you told me about, which is, kind of in there. But I just want to ask still on the Booker Prize this time around. Have you read the shortlisted candidates?
I ordered them. They're sitting in the bushes. But no, I looked at the show. So I'm not that. You read whatever wins. I'm not a big Booker watcher. I realize there's a whole community of people who get very upset and passionate about this thing. I did follow the Booker Prize and so on. But this long list I thought was quite a powerful one. And there was a couple of titles on the long list which I thought were going to scoop the prize, which didn't make it. Maps of Our Spectacular Bodies, which told from the point of view of a cancer in our body. And I thought, that sounds like and there were a lot of these intriguing ideas. So I haven't. I've read the synopses, I've read the interviews and all that, and the online reviews. But I think it's quite a good shortlist. There's no clear. I think this time there's no Margaret Atwood or someone. These are all like relatively unknown writers. So I think it's anyone's game, as they say. Let's see.
Well, thank you for that, because high time we moved away from the old bastion and come into, because talent abounds. And it's just, and the thing is, the sad part is it's still reviewed by peers or certain individuals who you think are capable. But the thing is, everything is subjective, Shehan. You and I know this more than most. And because if it's not to your taste, it's not to your taste. But if it's very much to your taste, and so the thing is, it's not a measure of intelligence, I feel, or talent for that matter. It's just it's fantastic. And like you said, it's a cosmic gamble this time around. And
they're betting, right? So
betting on.
The British bet on everything. So I was betting on the book. I was kind of the outside. I was thinking of putting, but is that match fixing? I don't know.
Yeah. Do you know your odds?
It was 14 to. No, I don't know what these fractions mean.
Yeah.
14 to 2. What does that mean? If I put down £2, I get 14 pounds.
I do hope it works out that way, because I remember that one lady who bet on Japan beating South Africa ended up with £500,000. So I hope, because she put £1,000 down at 500 to 1 notes. So that's very clear. It's 14 to 2.
Now, yeah, betting on Sri Lanka winning the World Cup.
Yeah.
I was trying to look for people who have done.
I have friends of mine. We have benchmates who have done and won.
Now that would have been a great bet. Betting on Kenya beating West Indies in '96. And I put that in Chinaman. That's what WG puts a bet on that, and that's how he funds his documentary by.
Right. Yes. Oh, yeah.
But yes, the book. I think I'm kind of midway. But yeah, I don't know how. I mean, if anything, I bet on everyone else and share your bets or anything. But
absolutely. Why not?
That's bad karma.
Don't upset the cosmos, because it's been good to you. Yeah. Lily asked this question. Did you always want to or know you were going to be a writer? What was the cathartic moment?
No, so I was a copywriter.
Yes.
We
still do it, yeah. So Shehan and I, we worked together for a long time as well. We are also in the same batch, in the same school. So it's been a long.
You are my target audience.
Pretty much.
That's what you write for people who think like you. But yeah, so I was a copywriter, but I also had delusions of being a rock star in my youth. I mean, delusions I still haven't given up. I still have the piercings. I don't have the talent sadly, but I was playing in rock bands, writing copy.
And what was it called? Independence Square.
Correct. I was in Palakkad Circus, Independence Square, and Anyway, and the thing what I realized is, and so I read and I wrote for a living, but my ambition was to play in a band and tour the world. But the telling thing was this: I didn't practice my guitar every day, but I wrote every day. And I think this is what makes, separates writers from civilians. It's like normal people write and it's crap and they give up. Writers write it's crap and they come back the next day and they tweak it and they come back. And I felt, and I still feel to this day, if I don't write even a sentence, a paragraph, the day is wasted. And so I think that's why I didn't become a musician, because I only picked up my guitar when we had a gig and we were under pressure, but I ended up just writing all the time. And then suddenly I'm in my 30s, none of my bands have been invited to the Grammys. I'm doing okay in my career advertising, but I had this idea, and also with these novels, because it takes so long, you have these ideas that won't leave you alone. And I had this idea of a left arm spinner. I said, someone should write a book about a left arm spinner who played for Sri Lanka in 1985. And I realized no one's going to write that book. And so I thought I might as well give it a go. And so the answer to the question is, I ended up finding myself at 35 and I realized, I am a writer because I do it every day
and why not?
So different authors obviously have different ways of starting off. Some obviously scribble a few words, some basically get down and start writing, some use the traditional typewriter. What do you do? How do you start off?
I have a typewriter, but that thing doesn't have a backspace. And it's good for a while. If you like Hemingway, you got a bit of whiskey here.
But when you feel like Hemingway, it's all clear, it died in the rain.
But then you make a mistake and so no, there was no typewriter for me, but I do write longhand. I do pencils. I have 7B, 6B pencils.
Right.
I've named the brand, but they haven't given me an endorsement. So I won't. But I like thick pencils, and I have like A3 sheets, and I just fill that stuff. So before I start, I do a lot of the research. Well, in the sense, it's also nonsensical research. So for this one, I visited haunted houses, I watched horror movies, watched Paranormal Activity. Long before it. I mean, the first two were decent. I watched up to like the 6th or 7th.
True. And you did also speak to me about the hauntings in my house.
Yes. Yeah. He's been a constant source. So,
both.
When I was researching alcoholics,
Actually, that was based on my father. So, WG he does a lot of things that my father did, right? And we had long chats about this.
Right. So once I think a drug, then second book,
And it was.
So yeah, and then I collect a lot of sheets, but then after a while you have to like cut. Because research becomes procrastination.
Right.
And you can go down rabbit holes, and then you say, okay, I'm going to start typing and I'm going to have a draft done in 6 months.
Okay.
And then I get down to not the typewriter, the computer, and doing that. But I think all writers do this. You have to write every day. You have to write every day for at least 3-4 hours if you want to finish something. Stephen King, I think he does 1,000 words a day or 2,000 words a day, but
I think he's got a formula which he kind of.
When you walk into a bookshop, he's got like this big, massive new book. He's got a short story collection. And you 7 years to write, and they're all like bestsellers.
Yeah.
And
so he's got the formula.
But does that help with this writer's block, so to say? You need to constantly keep writing every day?
Yes, so this writer's block thing, I mean, look, it's said by people who are non-writers. I don't think.
Okay, and that's what I want to know. Is there something called a writer's block?
Well, there are days when you wake up and you don't know what to write. Yes. Okay. But the example no other profession has that. You don't have a plumber's block, accountant's block, right? I mean, some guy accountant might wake up hungover, not feeling like doing numbers, but they gotta do it, right?
Yeah.
And you gotta. Okay, you may wake up not feeling, but you gotta do it. So I think you have that same attitude that it's a job.
Right.
So now I'm a morning person. You write in the night. So I wake up at 4, but I've been sleeping until 5 lately. But and I sit there and some days nothing happens.
Yeah.
But when nothing happens, it just means you don't know enough. So you just sort of need to read something, make some more notes. But the main key is that you turn up the next day. You don't say, I've got writer's block, I'm going to go and start drinking at 10 a.m.
and hopefully inspiration is.
Well, we try that also, and sometimes it does work, but generally you just turn up the same place every day. And then look, a week is whatever, 5 days, 7 days. 3 days you're just staring into space, looking at YouTube, trying to figure out the guitar solo from Appetite from Destruction. But then Thursday, Sunday you write 3 pages. And then you put them away. Friday you have a bad day, Saturday you write 2 pages. But then Sunday you have like 4 pages. And that's a good week.
So there is no inspiration per se. You just have to let it flow. Is that what you're trying to say?
You do get these little moments. So the moment for Chinaman was when I realized that it had to be told by a drunk man.
Right.
Like when up till then, Pradeep Mathew's story was told multiple points of view. Pradeep's point of view, his coach's point of view, his girlfriend's, and it was a bit unwieldy and a bit humorous. But then when I had this character, this drunk sports writer, he kind of took over the book, and then within 6 months I had a draft. But that breakthrough took 6 months to get to.
Right.
But you have to kind of not get discouraged. And so now with this one, I wrote it started with a book called Devil Dance, which is a slasher horror movie, which was about a bus going through the tsunami where each person like Friday the 13th would off kind of thing.
Right.
And that didn't go very far. I wasted 2 years on that. But the only that survived in the wreckage was this character Maali, Almeida, who was the ghost on the bus. So then the inspiration moment was, what if I just tell the story of Maali, Almeida, forget all these buses and this thing, and tell it in the second person. Now that was the...
That really worked, that really...
Well, it was a risk. I mean, there are not many books in the second person. Second person can be quite irritating, especially in short stories and all that. So, but you kind of feel, and then so when I started writing from a drunk old man's point of view, the book and that's when, so I guess that's what you call inspiration, you have these little moments.
So we do have another question from Suren. So what is the difference between copywriting and being an author, if there is one?
Well, you're using the same tools, right?
Yeah.
You're using a pencil, a piece of paper, words, nouns, verbs, adjectives, so you're using punctuation, all that is true. But copywriting, I suppose, you're lying in both cases.
Yeah.
Let's not mix words here.
Yeah. So there's a lot of
copywriting, you're kind of,
well, the thing
you're
is,
pretending like you're telling the truth.
Yeah.
You're pretending like you're telling a lie, but you're making it sound like the truth.
Yeah.
Whereas with fiction, you're telling the person it's a lie. You know this story did not happen, it didn't happen this way. But through those lies, you're actually trying to say something that might be true. So I think that's the difference, that in fiction, you're blatantly saying this is a lie, and then you're...
Also, advertising writers, when they try to write movies, they usually end in like 1.5 minutes. Because we are so used to writing commercials that are 30 seconds or 45 seconds or a minute. So how do you do even a short film? It's impossible to write for 10 minutes. So even when you're like, writing long copy, like, a novel, I mean, it's so much easier.
Yeah, that's how
yeah, 2 pages and you got the entire story. So, it's a little, you've got to shift a few gears inside, so.
Well, I mean, copywriting, I think this is what if you're a good copywriter, you're not using your own voice, you're using the brand's voice. And so therefore you're talking for the brand and you're talking to a specific target audience. So the stuff, it may be appealing to a certain niche. So that's the skill, and you should put your heart into it.
Of course.
But it breaks your heart when you do it and the client just kind of breaks your heart. So that's the copywriter. But with fiction, it's all yours, right? There's no one telling you, there's no publisher or anyone, you're writing your own thing. So I think with copyright, the restrictions are kind of good because okay, this job has to be done in 3 weeks, these are the parameters, and you do this thing, could be done in 3 years.
It's open-ended, that's true.
But it's the same. I think I learned a lot from advertising, the idea that you have to have an idea.
Yeah.
Thursday the client's coming, Wednesday night you don't have an idea. You have to come up with something. You can't say writer's block and all that.
Absolutely.
So that
we've all been there.
Forcing yourself to, and even if it's not so good, and sometimes writing is that you just have to put some crap on the page and you wake up this morning, it's not as bad as you thought it was.
Right.
Shehan, I got a big entry into the comic book world, especially Neil Gaiman and the Sandman from you. I first started reading it from your books.
We used to go to Vijaya.
Absolutely, yeah. Now I've got like the collection twice over. But so you were my entry into the world of comics and fantasy. How much has that influenced your writing? That kind of writing?
So Sandman is now it's on Netflix.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not everyone's cup of tea. I noticed a lot of hate to it, but I think it was good. I didn't think it could have been filmed, and I thought we did that.
And
I thought it was a tremendous achievement. But yeah, so now I'm not a big comic. Like my friends, so I got into Neil Gaiman, Sandman in the early 90s, and all my friends were reading Spawn and superhero stuff, which didn't quite work for me, but this was like, what the hell was it? Like, we didn't even know, we used to buy this little comic.
That's right, yeah.
And it was like, there's philosophy in there, there's like classical literary illusions, and there's also like, monsters and demons and all that. And I turned to that, so I also got the whole 10 set. When you're world building Afterlife, I leant heavily on what Neil Gaiman was doing. So I read the Sandman and reread it because it's so multifaceted.
Absolutely.
Mine's not a patch on that. Mine's quite simplistic compared to that. So I think I did borrow as well as going to Dante and the Bhagavad Gita. That stuff. I also went to Neil Gaiman, Sandman, and Beetlejuice and Ghost and the Pulp influences. I think it's all there. But
I think that's why it works. So Fallon wants to know the answer to this. Would you advise any children to try their pen at being an author, or someone with a midlife crisis to take up writing a novel?
What a great question!
This is counseling. I would advise all children to take up reading. I think that's the biggest gift we can give, and that's that. We talk about the relevance of literature and all that. I think that's so. First thing. Encourage your kids to be readers.
But just don't tell them that. You've got to do it and show, because they follow your example and you just say, you know what, reading maketh the man, and you don't. They're like, right there. I have to actually hold my son back from getting into Sandman. When he's 11 years old, I said, dude, wait for this. You will enjoy it so much more. We'll do it at 16.
Right. When you understand it properly.
Yeah, when you can get most of it.
That's right. Right.
Because otherwise it's so complex.
He's gonna read it touring. Like,
Yeah, pretty much.
with your Playboy magazine. Sad man. But okay.
I don't have any paper.
So yes, internet. We don't need magazines.
I think what a tragedy, no? The magazine is now just what? Like pretty much like, why would you?
It's like printing out the internet.
Yeah.
But sorry, there was some good. So would you have a child become an author? Is you give them a love of reading and look, it's a tough road. So if they are compelled to write, if you've got a kid who's writing in their journal all the time, chances are if they're getting bullied a bit, it's always the kind of downtrodden who become writers and artists. Midlife crisis, yes. I'm forming a midlife crisis band. I'm looking for we're all doing these things that it may not. I think writing is a gift that if you don't take too seriously, it is a gift. Any sort of artistic expression is a gift, and so you can give it to your kids, and you can just you don't have to. Now my guitar ambitions, if I can just play in a pub band on a Friday night, play a few, I'm happy. I don't want to be Jimi Hendrix. There was a time I now I just set for play bass with nobody. So I think,
I'm sure that can be arranged.
I think we can arrange for a jam in this room. But I would say. Well, of course.
We've got quite a few questions coming up.
Sure. James wants to know if one director was to direct a movie inspired by one of your books, who would that be?
And which book would it be for you to actually turn it into a movie? Sorry, James, I just have to add to that question.
No, I don't want to again tempt fate here because I can give you fantasy. I can Alfred Hitchcock. I don't think.
He's alive. He was alive.
So the movie thing has been a bit strange, but I guess even though I think I'm writing detective stories and murder mysteries, I get lumped in literary difficult to film category because we've had conversations with Chinaman and there have been a few sort of movie options with it. But
I think I would have thought that Chinaman was very nicely doable.
That was actually a question if you ever thought of that or if you're actually going to take that step, making it into a movie.
So I think you've got to also realize how movies are financed.
Yeah.
There's no roles in Chinaman for Tom Cruise, right? It's the protagonist, the old man who is, and but of course this stereotype has changed now with Netflix.
Anthony Hopkins.
So that's the first thing. It's an old man talking about an obscure sport in an obscure country. So there are all these production issues, and there was talk of India buying Chinaman and turning it into an Indian story, which sort of would have made commercial success and doing it about the '83 World Cup rather than '96.
Oh, right. But that would have killed the spirit of it.
I felt that way, but if they paid me enough, I'd sell out. Why not?
Yeah.
But, I was a bit conflicted about that. I'm a seller. I'm an advertising guy. Of course.
And why not, Shehan? The thing is.
But look, director, I would say, my personal taste. If I could get Mr. Wes Anderson's agent to, I don't know if I could just see him setting up the scenes. At least it would be a beautiful looking picture. Who knows? Anyway, these plans are afoot, but with movie making, it will go into development hell and it will be like 20 years later when it gets made. But who knows? Never say never.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But would you do the screenplay if it came to it?
I wouldn't, because I'd have to rewrite this thing again.
Jerry says the Tom Cruise is 60 is almost old enough.
Brilliant, Jerry. That's good. But he looks like Mavericks.
That's true. In Mavericks.
Absolutely,
He looks like Mavericks. WG was 64.
Yeah.
So I don't know how Tom Cruise would work.
But Tom Cruise might try to run and then bolt or try to do something.
I want to be Pradeep Mathew. You want to be the hero.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. But the thing is, if he is Pradeep Mathew, we'll see him at the end.
Spoiler.
Sorry. If you haven't read Chinaman in 11 years, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. You're in the wrong place. Wrong interview. Let's just quickly talk. We're almost like into the last 3 minutes of the show. Yeah. So let's quickly touch on the children's books that you've been basically on.
Yes.
And some obviously.
I mean, this is my masterpiece.
That's your masterpice? I thought that the other one would be your masterpiece.
Where shall I put? I mean, please don't put that in your mouth.
Yes.
Sweet.
There.
See what's happening?
Oh.
No one knows what we're laughing
Yeah,
Nobody knows.
that's true.
We can cut this in the edit. It's not live, right?
This is nice, like a
Actually, let's stick with the book.
Yeah.
Nice orange color.
Yeah.
So because the second book took so long, and I blame it on my children. I mean, my children happened to be born.
They got it right.
They happened to be born, and they happened to be
Yeah.
like and being toddlers and all that. So but also I realized the very hungry caterpillar, which we are all familiar with, sells 1 million copies every year.
Yeah.
And it's not even particularly well written. It's
Yeah,
okay.
it's a basic book, yeah. You
But
know.
and I thought, why we spending 7 years writing literature, which
Yeah,
no one to
absolutely.
read? Let's write the Hungry Caterpillar. So this
Yeah,
is
David has told me the same thing. Please just write some children's stories, because if you want to be, consider yourself an author and be a millionaire, the way to go. Yeah.
So me and my brother, and he's done the illustrations on these two books, we thought we just do a kids book every year.
When did you publish these, Shehan?
So this is we do it ourselves. It's like what the kids call a side hustle. This is,
Right.
So, rather than going through traditional publishing, we do it ourselves. We've got our website, sell it online, and it's fun. Kids book, it's 1 month of your life, and the inspiration is always there.
Right.
Your kid puts like a paintbrush in their mouth, and the book comes out, and they're pooping all over the place.
Yes.
The next one's about sleep.
Right.
So
Wow.
there's plenty.
So there's another one in the works as well.
Yeah, so that's our program. So I'm doing one on sleep, and I'm doing one on insects. I did one on plants here, and so I think there's
Before the end of the show, when are you going to? I mean, you've been always threatening to write a book about advertising and all the things that that entails. Are you doing it?
I have begun that one, but I don't know if it's going to be just about advertising or satire about corporate Sri Lanka, because there's
why
plenty
not?
of. But there's plenty of it. I also wanted to write something a bit more down to earth. These yakas and demons and afterlives got a bit too much. So this would be a very down to earth story.
Absolutely.
But just Sri Lankan business. I mean, we're willing to. I'll come to Anu for the.
Once again, I was just going to say, and because I've got the whole gamut of stories of Uday and Nepal too. So I'll bring everything to the table.
So I'm not begun, but I'm quite slow. Hopefully, my kids are a bit more older and a bit more respectful. Maybe I'll get it done quicker. But on to the next one, as Uncle Carl says, or and Jay-Z.
So just before we obviously wind up the show, one final question for you, Shehan. What type of author would you like to be remembered as?
Do we get remembered? I'm a
I think, look, at the end of the day, Chinaman was very difficult for you. Obviously, you self-published it. It was difficult. I mean, lots of publishing houses really didn't actually take two hoots about it. But now that sort of opened the doors for you for the other books, right? So now people know Shehan, and especially now coming into the shortlist, people know of Shehan and what he can do, right? So what type of author would you like to be remembered as?
Well, I have to deconstruct the remembered thing, because when you look, I'm lucky that Chinaman 10 years later is still in print.
Yes.
That's something I don't take for granted. And will these books be still in print in 10 years? In my lifetime, maybe not. But you look at the bestsellers of the 70s. I was going through, my mother's old collection. There's Arthur Haley, who was like this massive bestseller. Hardly gets read these days. We remember the literary one, but we have no control. Kafka was writing in obscurity, and he's still read out of, and he's probably the.
Just because in most universities Kafka is still taught, so that's probably one reason. So, do you mean Alex Haley or Arthur Haley?
Oh, no, Alex Haley Roots.
Yeah.
So Roots, I think, has survived, but Arthur Haley wrote these airport novels, The Money Changers, these Sidney Sheldon-esque, they're all these and you wonder, okay, 50 Shades of Grey, it was this massive, game-changing bestseller, will it be read in 20 years? You don't know. So I don't know if, I'd be happy if I'm read at all outside my lifetime, that's fine. But I mean, my approach is, each book I'd like to do something different. So I did a ghost story, did a cricket story, do a corporate story, and who knows what's next. I mean, I'll try different things. But look, I'll be happy to be remembered at all if they're still reading my stuff after I'm hanging out with Maali, Almeida.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Having a
that's
little spiritual upliftment in the nether. That question immediately brought to my mind Erasmus Fry from Neil Gaiman. Here Comes a Candle was the one he wanted republished.
So now that story about the muse being, it was much more brutal.
Calliope,
Calliope was very brutal because obviously
there's
some not very nice things to
Yeah.
get inspiration
Yeah.
in the thing. But yeah, I mean, what a story!
What a story.
And, yeah, I don't have anyone chained in my basement.
I don't have a basement. No mules like that.
I have plenty of muses, but they're mainly middle-aged men who are muses.
All right, before we conclude the show, we really need to find the answer to that question that we posed in the poll.
Hopefully we have it.
Yeah. I hope hopefully we do have that question. And just before that, we need to get into this message from our sponsor.
Welcome to the universe of the Raz, where you explore and discover whatever you want, whatever you need. All you can imagine is on your feet. When miles are abridged, happiness is unlocked. Discover your Dharaj.
Right, we are back. So today's poll was very simple. Can more authentic Sri Lankan stories capture a global audience? Which is a very important thing because it involves our identity and taking our identity to the rest of the world. So yes or no answers only, and you were supposed to WhatsApp your answers to our hotline number 07766915990. Let's see how they stand. 87% say more authentic Sri Lankan stories can capture a global audience, and that I think also kind of underlies the fact that there are more authentic Sri Lankan stories waiting to be told.
That can be taken out.
Yeah.
There's an abundance of stories. I think that's we are blessed that way.
Absolutely.
Blessed or cursed that way. And I think a good story will capture a global audience.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure there are 1,000 stories waiting to be told just about the Aragale and what led to that. The JVP uprising, the post-colonial experience, so many.
And we can go further back in history, so there are plenty of stories. And look, Sri Lanka captures the world's headlines for such a small country. One sport and one is for not very nice reasons, either for turmoil and all that. But I think it's object. Being a Sri Lankan writer, I mean, I've lived in other countries where I've not been inspired to write, but here you're always inspired.
Rightio then, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Shehan, thank you so much for being a part of the show. Had such a great time talking about lots of stuff, and here's wishing you for you to bang the book. Alright guys, catch up with you once again tomorrow night, as always, with another fantastic guest on the show. Let's sit back.
Do we have a guest tomorrow?
We have a guest tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. We'll wait and see. Take care. Bye-bye.